Welcome to our channel. Russian President Vladimir Putin lit the fuse on the bomb he was holding on February 24th to throw it at Ukraine. However, the bomb seems to explode in their own hands right now. With the war in Ukraine, the Russian army lost tens of thousands of casualties. Reports are shared that over 50,000 Russian soldiers, including more than 1,000 Russian elite forces, were killed in Ukraine, and over 2,000 Russian tanks were destroyed. The Russian people, on the other hand, blame Putin for the collapse of the Russian economy with the heavy sanctions of the West and these military losses. The Russian economy has completely collapsed due to the war that has stubbornly continued for almost 7 months. Now emerging Russian partisans are organizing massive protests and attempting to assassinate Russian staff. Russia's entire order seems to have fundamentally cracked, and now Putin's throne and Putin's regime is in grave danger. Vladimir Putin's war in Ukraine is probably unpopular with the majority of the Russian population, but there are fears that a dictator will put even more pressure on the people. For this reason, the reactions still have not reached the level that will return Russia into hell. Limited protests were held in Moscow against the war in Ukraine, but videos show protesters were quickly detained by the police. Still, it is estimated that at least 50% of Russians were against the war. Opinion polls from Russia show around 70% of Russians over the age of 50 support the war, but that number is greatly inflated in an authoritarian state where freedom of expression is limited. I think about half of the population participated in the war and the other half kept quiet about it because they know what war is. We think that more than a quarter of the support shown in the opinion polls could be discounted due to fears of backlash. This is based on published opinion polls conducted in Russia according to people who are too afraid to tell the truth. So you see that about 70% of people would say to opinion polls that they support the war, but you can assume that more than a quarter of them are too afraid to say anything else. War is likely to become even less popular with the public as Putin's so-called invasion-focused special military operation, what the Russian people have liked to call war, becomes less special and even less military due to failures in Ukraine. This may lead to an increased desire for resistance in Russia. Together with this, it is feared that Putin will collapse even harder as ordinary Russians become more anti-war. It is believed that Putin's lockdown on society may increase, especially after the bombing of Russian ultra-nationalist Daria Dugina in an elite suburb of Moscow. There could be a significant increase in support and reactions for Putin himself. Daria Dugina, 29, was the daughter of one of Putin's closest friends, Alexander Dugin. Dugin is thought to be an ultra-nationalist philosopher and Kremlin resident and a mentor to Putin. There are many claims that Dugin is the real name behind Putin's Ukraine campaign. On the other hand, it was claimed that Daria Dugina's assassination was carried out by extreme Russian partisans who wanted to end the Putin regime and behead Putin. Some experts argue that the bombing may have been carried out by the Russian security services to give Putin an excuse to tighten his power. It is thought that the lock will increase after this attack on Daria Dugina because they have excuses to say that terrorism and war are coming to the heart of the country. By hiding behind this excuse, Putin can continue the war and maintain his pressure on the Russian people. At the same time, the thoughts of the majority who now think that Putin is continuing the war in vain can be changed. While Moscow blames Ukraine for the attack, Kiev vehemently denies it. An unknown third party, the National Republican Army inside Russia, claimed responsibility for the attack, but is unlikely to be capable of carrying out such a bombing. However, this is a fact. The responsibility of this attack by the National Republican Army shows that the resistance against Putin is now manifested. Russian partisans openly threaten the Russian leader and his staff. They also use this attack as a threat. Protests in Russia will increase much more in recent days. Experts agree on this. However, as these protests increase, so will Putin's harsh methods. It is much more difficult to resist in Russia than in Belarus, because in Belarus there are proportionately more people willing to go out and protest. With the threat of arrest and imprisonment, Putin will likely tighten his control over the Russian population and continue his unpopular war in Ukraine. However, this revolt is not only experienced by the Russian people. The fire born of Putin's war has spread to all its ends and may soon give Putin his worst hell. The UK Ministry of Defense said in its latest report that the Russian military fighting in Ukraine is experiencing fragile morale due to blatant corruption and lack of access to adequate equipment. Morale problems have long been reported in the Russian military's invasion of Ukraine, and the UK Ministry of Defense has repeatedly cited the mental state of soldiers as a weakness for Putin. This low morale problem continued as Russian forces tried to push the eastern Donbas region and fend off Ukrainian efforts to retake Kherson. The UK Ministry of Defense explained that Russian forces continue to suffer from morale and discipline problems in Ukraine. The ministry added to its daily intelligence update that Kremlin forces are battling war fatigue and high casualties. However, a major complaint across the ranks remains issues with their pay. In the Russian army, the income of the troops consists of modest core salary, supplemented by a complex variety of bonuses and allowances. In Ukraine, there have probably been sufficient problems with the non-payment of large war bonuses. This is due to the inefficient military bureaucracy in the region and the unusual legal status of the war. Another important factor is that there is at least some overt corruption among commanders. The Russian military has consistently failed to provide troops stationed in Ukraine with basic rights, including appropriate uniforms, weapons and supplies, and salaries. This almost certainly contributed to the continued fragile morale of most of the force. Failure to meet the needs of the Russian army fuels the unrest in the army excessively. Russian soldiers are rebelling against Putin, saying that not only their military equipment but also their humanitarian needs are not being met. There may have been reports in recent days showing Russian soldiers fighting among themselves. It should be noted that most of these reports were leaked by anti-war people in Russia, so all these events reflect reality. Drunk Russian soldiers kill each other and serious clashes take place between some units. At the same time, there are attempts to assassinate many people, including Putin. This fear increases the anxiety of Putin's security forces. Vladimir Putin caused panic in his armed guards when he abandoned his bulletproof car for an impromptu meeting with a crowd during a visit to Kaliningrad. The Russian leader left his official bulletproof Arias limousine on Thursday to speak to locals in Kaliningrad. Every province, every region, and every inch of the Russian Federation is crushed by the psychological, physiological, and economic effects of the war. While the Russian people are dragged into a great turmoil, they do not want to send their children to the meaningless war in Ukraine. During the 7-month war, the world's largest companies stopped their activities in Russia, and many restrictions brought by the sanctions of the West paralyzed daily life in Russia. Now the Russian people have to pay 2 or 3 times the price for almost any material, service, or transportation. One of the most severe effects of the Western sanctions is seen in the Russian defense industry and aviation. The lack of spare parts cannot make back what the Russian army lost. All these reasons are more than enough reasons to drive the Russian people crazy, to cause a revolt against Putin and a great uprising. We hope that Vladimir Putin realizes his mistake and stops his attempt in Ukraine, and in a peaceful scenario, Ukraine will gain all its land and freedom. It seems that a different scenario will either overthrow Putin and his regime, either by the Russian people or by the Ukrainians. Thanks for watching.